So why do we have this mind? What's the point of having a mind? Yeah. Oops. Hold on. Why do they make the buttons so like you can't see them or feel them? Okay. So the mind itself is, okay, what does Umwelt mean? That should be a new word for you. It's your perception of reality. It's your Umwelt. Your Umwelt is what you're aware of around you. Okay? But it's only based on your perception. It's really hard being a very liberal redneck. I grew up hunting and fishing and driving my friend's Renault Le Car, which we made into a dune buggy. And if you've ever seen a Renault Le Car, they're ridiculously small, which is perfect for a high school kid to buy for about $20 and make it into a dune buggy. Working on my buddy's Jeep, we used to rally race our Datsuns all over the place. And this, growing up as a redneck, coming out to California, it's a little different. Because back in Vermont, all the rednecks are liberal. Out here, what are all the rednecks? Conservative. Oh, so I'm going hanging out with my people, and they're all not my people. What do? I can put a lifted, tires in my Prius, I suppose, but it's one of those things where it's a different perspective out here. I do not go to the desert. I would love to go to the desert, but why don't I go to the desert? No, it's not hard at all. It's fun. Yes, there's tons of life in the desert. You just have to sit still and watch it. As soon as you sit still for about 10 minutes, what do you start to see? Everything comes alive and starts moving. You move, everything stops. Well, it's dead. There's nothing here. Sit there for like just a minute, and you have an ant crawling in places. There's ants everywhere. Anyway, but the desert I love the desert. But I don't go to the desert here because I don't like burning gas. I'm a big environmentalist. I think that we should all ride bicycles. But because my friend got killed, I do not ride my bike on the road very much. I ride my old Raleigh, but we usually ride it usually down at the beach or Coronado on the bike strand or somewhere where you don't get ran over by cars. We usually go mountain biking. And my mountain bike's got big fat tires on it. It does great in the sand. But I don't like burning the gas to get out to the desert to go ride from here. When we're up in June Lake, I go riding all over the place. It's awesome. Mountain biking up there is just great. It's all loose, sandy soil. My big fat tires on my bike, love it. And it's just great. Do I take the lifts up and ride down Mammoth? No, that's not my idea of fun. And it's interesting because my perspective, my Umwelt has been shaped over the years that I really don't like burning a lot of gas. I try to avoid burning as much gas as possible. I like to do as little to the earth as I possibly can. But, so, having a certain perspective, my choices are based on this perspective. I'm incredibly cheap. The reason I'm having Starbucks today is my wife got a bunch of gift cards from her students for Christmas. Woohoo! So I've got about, I don't know how many I have left. One of them had like $17 on it. Oh no. I think I may have used the last one this morning. Oh well. I collected a whole pile of them that she got. She didn't notice. And, so, how does that change my perspective? Why give you guys a free book? Because I value not spending money. I value the fact that you can learn a lot without having to buy a $200 textbook. Anybody know why a lot of faculty like the $200 textbooks? Well, we don't get paid by the publishers. That would be awesome if we did. Turns out that they give you, faculty, a bunch of stuff that you can use to teach with. So it makes your job easier if you use a really good textbook. They give you PowerPoint slides, they give you tests, they give you all this other stuff that makes your job easier. That's one of the reasons people love the expensive textbooks. Because the more expensive the textbook is, the more stuff the faculty gets to help teach the course. And I really refuse to be a PowerPoint teacher. But again, that's from my perspective. How do I know what other people are thinking? Okay, so I'm going to show you this experiment. This is also a Caleb experiment. This is when he was 3. I don't have video of my daughter doing the same experiment. Oh, this is even better. Hold on.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, we call that danger baby. Whenever he put his Bob the Builder hat on, you're going danger baby, which is like going down the driveway in his little Thomas the Train. Anybody remember the big Thomas the Train? He pushed the button and it made sounds. He would go down the driveway and smash into the garage door with it. Danger baby. Okay, but watch carefully.
No, I'm not taking a picture, buddy. Don't just stare at the camera. Okay.
He's 3 in this
I have a
picture.
question for you. In my pocket, what is in this box?
Crayons.
You think so? Okay. I want you to open it and look inside.
You don't speak Cree? Quans?
Oh.
Okay, you have to learn to speak Cree. Yeah. Okay. So, I asked him, what do you think is in this box of crayons? And he says, quans. Quans. Okay.
What's in the box? Popsicle sticks. Okay.
He was talking while inhaling. That's why it sounded so funny. Okay, so now here's the question. Are there crayons in the box? No, so he has now a false belief. Okay, so I provide evidence to him that there's a box in my pocket of crayons. He says it's crayons. No, it's not crayons, it's popsicle sticks. Okay, so now, if he has a past, I'm going to ask you, what did you think was in the box? If he has a past, he should say crayons. If he doesn't have a past, what would he say? Popsicle sticks, because this is why 2-year-olds are really obnoxious. He's 3 now. But a 2-year-old, you show them the box. What's in the box? Crayons. They look at it and they go, oh, popsicle sticks. They close the box and go, what did you think? Popsicle sticks. Because what they know is what they've always known. Let me tie your shoe. No, I can do it. Oh, no. Anybody have the 2-year-old tie the shoe battle? Yeah. No, me do it. Oh, no. And that's why Crocs are wonderful until about age 17 for young ladies, because then you can be awkward and with birth control. Now, my daughter. Okay, until some damn YouTuber started wearing Crocs and all the kids at Pack Training started wearing Crocs. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. I wish I could have that. They're squishy. So the 2-year-old doesn't understand what they know now is different than what they've always known. So when the 2-year-old sees their shoes and wants to tie their shoes, they think, I can tie my shoes. Can they tie their shoes? No, so they get really frustrated because what do they know? I can tie my shoes. What they know now is how they've always known things. And that's the best for a 2-year-old. How do you avoid the conflict? No. No. If you try to let them tie their shoes, Crocs, avoid the situation, because if you distract them just a little bit, what'll happen? It's called choosing the battles with the 2-year-old. You don't fight with them because they're right in their own mind. And they can't see anybody else's perspective than what they know right now. Can you reason with the 2-year-old? Not well. You can distract the 2-year-old. Because he probably respects you. Gee, sorry. Yeah. See, so now, because if the child has good trust in the parent, will the child just do what the parent asks? Because we talked about something called attachment. That bodes well for her later in life. Fine. Do you say that? Yeah. Okay. Check. Nice work. Okay.
So Caleb,
Watch his
what
mouth.
did you think was in the box?
Crayons.
Right. Now,
brilliant 3-year-old. What was he about to say? Popsicles. But then he thought, oh, wait a second. My daughter did not, she said, when my daughter was the same age, what did you think? My daughter said popsicles without even hesitating. Now look at how smug he is.
Now, if Mommy were to see this box, what would she think is in there?
Popsicle.
Do you think she would think that?
I am so smart. So now, if Mom were to see this box, what would she think is in a box of crayons? Popsicle sticks, obviously. This is why I think 3 is harder than 2. Because they know what they know and they know what they knew, but what do they not know? What somebody else would think. They do not have the idea that other people have perspectives that are different from their own. So this is a way of studying perspective. It's a way of looking at this study, this idea of mind as being perspective. Okay, so now, watch his mind.
There's popsicle sticks in there. Why don't you bring it over to Mommy and ask her? See if she can ask her what's inside the box.
What's in that box?
The dog's like, what's in the box?
What? Caleb, is she right?
You see his mind get blown? Watch this.
Well, what do you mean she's not right? Caleb,
What's in that box? Crayons.
what? Caleb, is she right? Well, what do you mean she's not right?
I said crayons and she said crayons.
Right. Show her what's in there.
Popsicle sticks? Yeah, I told ya!
Okay, now, Caleb, last chance.
Now this
You're going to show Ella the box.
Oh, what's in this box?
Wait, Ella, don't say anything. What do you think Ella is going to answer?
Oh,
Well,
Caleb,
projector, shut up.
what do you think Ella is going to answer?
I think she's gonna say, the dinosaurs.
Oh, really? Ella,
Dinosaurs. This is a problem with studying 3-year-olds. What's their stream of consciousness? I'll turn the projector back on. Their stream of consciousness goes for about 2 to 3 minutes, and all of a sudden, dinosaurs. Most of the kids, we tested this with all the neighbor kids at age 3. And I recorded them all, but my neighbors didn't want me using their kids on this. Okay, I'll wait until they're old enough, and I'll do it. But most of the neighbor kids who are the older children didn't get now and then at age 3. You didn't get it. Most of the older kids got it at age 4. But why did my son and the younger siblings get it sooner? Because he has a model of mind. He has a model of mind. Do we need other people? Why do we need other people? Watch and learn. In psychology, we call it observational or vicarious learning. But observational or vicarious learning is really important because you can pay attention to what someone's doing and not just understand exactly what they're doing, but understand this. Concept formation. So, based on the theory of mind, where are we? Where are we right now? But based on the theory of mind, where are we? Well, where is our consciousness? Are we just focused on what you're thinking, what you're doing right now? It's so this is in a college classroom. This is really complicated because you're thinking about what you knew in the past, what you're being exposed to now, and how will that change how you think about things in the future. But then, this is why I think being in a campus in a class and why having your carcass here makes a difference. It's because you can start to hear other people's perspectives. Because if you just sit and read one book and you learn that perspective, is it right? Well, what is you asked this question right during the break, is what is right, what is wrong? Is there an ultimate reality? Is there a true reality? There is a real physical world, and that's what's so much fun about why NASA scientists love going and shooting probes by ugly peanuts in space. But the recent probe saw an ugly peanut in space, and all the NASA scientists are like peeing on themselves. They're so excited. We saw it. It's an outer body experience. It was so exciting. Who cares? How does that affect us today? And does it? No, not at all. It's not going to change your day at all unless you're following the NASA camp. But has anybody ever seen video of the Tesla rocket landing, or whatever, SpaceX rocket? Physics said that's impossible. Elon Musk goes, challenge accepted. There's a launch pad, and the thing goes. If you watch it, you're like, that's CGI. Like, no. It's freaking cool. How did he figure it out? It's not trial and error. It's too expensive for trial and error. I mean, they did make some mistakes. One of the fins didn't pop out, and they missed by like 30 feet. Ooh. They based on theoretical future thinking. They knew it would be possible if. My dad was an engineer. He passed away in 1997, but he was an engineer. He designed computer chips. The computer chips he designed in the 70s and 80s, they couldn't build until the mid-90s. Because they came up with the design for the chips, but they couldn't lay down aluminum atoms in thin enough lines at the time they designed them in order to make the chips. Like the computer chips that they used to make were like this big. Because that was as thin as they could make the aluminum. But then the new modern computer chip, like the thing in this phone, it's one atom of aluminum lined up to make the chip. That's it. And some other fancy metal. But they designed the chips. He was the guy that my dad and his team built the 16-bit architecture. Back before, when 8-bit was all, Minecraft was all in rage. They built the 16-bit architecture, which led to the 64-bit, so that was pretty cool. We had the patent for the 16-bit architecture chip. For one person. Now, so trying to get back to the main point of this is that why do we have this perspective? Why can't we just be like the fluffy dog? Why can't we just be, I'll get it eventually. How does this help us make choices? I'll use the magical tool again. Humans have this really cool ability to look for cause and effect. Why is cause and effect so important? Well, to teach, but say it again louder. You have a quiet voice. Okay, yeah. So you want to look for things that are dangerous and things that are, yeah. I'm just going to write good. Well, because it turns out that there's a part of your brain that reacts to danger. Very specific. It's called your amygdala. We'll talk a lot about it on Friday. Okay? But that part of your brain responds to danger. Bad things happen. That one part of your brain says, ah! There's another part of the brain, which we'll talk about on Friday, called the nucleus accumbens, that looks for things that are good, that give you satisfaction. The dopamine. And what's interesting is the danger part of your brain looks for cause and effect things that can harm you. The good thing of your brain looks for things that are positive. How do you know what is good, what is bad? Well, if you just waited for our own perception to know what's good and bad, that's not good. Our perceptions are terrible. Well, yeah, so like for me, being sore is a good thing. I like it when my muscles are sore. This year I learned, every year I learn a little bit more about how to telemark ski. I grew up skiing my whole life, cross-country skiing and downhill skiing and the whole thing. When you're raised in Vermont, you pretty much, as soon as you can walk, you have skis strapped to your feet. That's just the way it is. And so when my family decided they wanted to start skiing against my better judgment, I said, fine, And I got a pair of old telemark skis, old cross-country skis that people ski on the downhill slopes with. I'd never really telemarked before. I'd never used them before. And I used regular ski poles the first season doing it. But I wanted to learn how to do it. So I said, fine, they're going to learn how to ski. I'm going to learn how to do this telemark stuff. And over the course of the last 3 years, I'm finally getting, my son's still way better than I am, but I'm getting good enough that I can go down the double black diamonds without breaking anything. It looks ugly. People stop and ask if I need help. But aside from that, it's interesting. But like after like one day of turning, you put your weight in your, like this. So you're basically doing lunges every time you turn. So what happens after the course of 3 hours of skiing? Your quads are hurting so bad. A couple times we'd finish the run, I'm like, oh, my quads are just dying. This summer I tore my meniscus in my knee, slipping in the mud. What were you doing? Like some cool X Game jump? No, I stepped off a rock, hit the mud, tore my meniscus, and pulled this quad. Excellent. I did not drop my fishing pole though. Two guys that were fishing nearby went, bravo, bravo, thank you. Ow. Anyway, so I haven't been able to do as much weightlifting and haven't been doing as much riding this semester. So why are my quads sore? I haven't used them enough. I'm going to use them a lot in the next couple weeks because we're going to go back for President's Day and go skiing again. I won't be able to wear jeans by the end of the week. Okay, but my quads being sore, good. My knee hurting, bad. Pain, pain. What's the difference? One's good pain, one's bad pain.
One will help you later.
Okay, so what part of your consciousness do you have to think about this? See what I'm saying? So you have to think of your future self. Like when we do lots of squats. Oh, crunch. Wait. Oh, got one more. Hey. This one's still clicking. Okay, this only goes on the first squat. But if I do lots of squats, it hurts like hell. But good pain. If I hurt myself, bad pain. So where is the good versus the bad? In the future self, in this future mind. And what's interesting is, but you have to look at perspective. How do you know between good and bad pain? No, to stand back up is the hard part, not to sit down. Yeah. Walking downstairs actually is the worst more than anything. But how do you know? A lot of people who, when they first go work out, get so sore, they say, I'm never doing that again. Other people, when they work out and they get super, super sore, they say, that was the best workout I've ever had. It is. It's the cause and effect you give to that particular perspective. And this is something that gives humans an advantage. Dogs don't have that advantage. Our little white fluffy dog loves begging in the kitchen. She'll sit in the kitchen and put herself right between the counter where you are and wherever you're cooking. So you kind of go and wedges her way in there and waits. Because what happens? Something's going to drop. And whenever Grandpa comes over, Grandpa opens up the fridge, opens up the cheese drawer, gets out a chunk of whatever cheese du jour is in the cheese drawer, and gives a little, doesn't throw it to her, makes her sit and then hands it to her. So anytime, anywhere she's out she loves sitting in the backyard. We have a pool, and she sits by the pool on the lounge chairs in the sun. We see her out there, she's like this, just right out, like, seriously, dog. Anyway, she's out on the back. I open up the cheese drawer. I get out a cheese stick. I look down, and she's there. How does she know? She learned cause and effect. But it's weird, if I open up Tupperware, she doesn't come in. But I open that cheese drawer, and on one of these days we're going to set up a specific experiment to find out exactly what she's paying attention to. Is it the sound of a Ziploc bag crinkling, or the combination of the clunk Ziploc bag crinkling, or the cellophane? We don't know exactly what stimuli it is. But what's interesting is humans have this thing called language. Dogs don't have language. They communicate, but they don't have language. Yeah. But so to define what language is using a series of symbols to communicate a concept. But that's not a concept, that's a simple reward. Is cheese a reward for everybody? No. If you're lactose intolerant, cheese is not a reward. It might be really tasty on the front side, but later, not so fun. Okay, so how do we know what someone is thinking? But so the weird thing is that humans communicate really well through concepts and through language. Careful. No, because it's, okay, now it's even meaner. Okay, because is it our brain that gives us the ability to have this concept? It gives us the ability to change perspective. Now, just to be annoying as the annoying psych person, is that there's a really horrible experiment. Please never do this, but they put goggles on kittens when they were born. And the goggles flip the world upside down. Okay? And so what it was a prism so that when the animal looked at the world, it saw the world upside down. After one day of stumbling around, little kitten was like, fine, and was perfectly functional with the world flipped upside down. Because in the cat's brain, did it care that the world was upside down or right side up? No. It just moved around a little bit. So the research scientists said, put the goggles on themselves. After 3 hours of excruciating headaches, guess what happened? They were able to function just fine with the world upside down. They stopped noticing that the world was upside down. Because do we really see reality as it is or as it relates to us? That's the same thing the cat does. It's very adaptation. Your brain itself it's just taking stimuli in and causing behavior to come out. Stimuli to come in, behavior to come out. The mind, okay? Is that me or somebody else? Okay, chicken. Okay. It sounded like something this thing does. Okay. But the mind itself is the way we talk about this brain changing. The mind is not something that exists. It's a concept. The mind is not something that exists. It's a concept. It's something that we have. The cause and effect relationships, dogs and cats learn cause and effect extremely well. Yeah.
Is the mind consciousness?
Part of the mind is consciousness. Because there's one more part. I want to even get a sip of coffee on that one. There's one more part that really does help with this, help understand this. It's called this. Mindfulness. I am a huge fan of a lot of Eastern philosophies. I'm really a big fan of meditation and yoga, but I like lifting heavy weights, not bending in strange poses, but still, it's the same basic idea. And the idea of, for me, I do what's called kettlebells exercises. Kettlebell is a ball on the end of a weight on the end of the thing, and you swing it around and you flip it all over the place. And what it does is it makes your whole body strong. And it's not, most of the times I use a 50-pound weight, this one 50-pound weight. That's the only weights that I generally pick up. We're doing deadlifts this afternoon, so I'm excited about that. Let's pick up more things. But never do deadlift the day before a road trip. Nothing better than a butt cramp while you're sitting in the car and you can't do nothing about it. No, crap. That's what cruise control's for. Anyway, but so by being mindful, why is throwing a weight around help you with mindfulness? You kind of have to pay attention to where your body is at all times. Yeah, you can hit yourself, and kettlebells are notoriously dangerous for people who don't know what they're doing. If you do it wrong, it'll ruin you. If you do it right, it makes you very strong and healthy. It's the same thing like running. If you do it wrong, what does it do? It hurts you. It's swimming. If you do it wrong, it hurts you. You die. Okay, sorry. I love swimming. Swimming is one of my favorites. As you get older, you enjoy swimming so much more because it doesn't hurt. Until you get tendonitis in your shoulder from swimming too much, but yeah. But the idea of mindfulness is conscious of your own consciousness, becoming conscious of your own perspective. This is the ultimate level of consciousness, and that's why we call it mindfulness, because being conscious of your own consciousness becomes so important. So we're going to teach you this semester how to become a little bit more mindful. By learning about psychology, by thinking about this idea of what the mind is, there's no good science in this, what we're talking about right now. Hardly any good science at all. Okay, but it's our first step to you becoming mindful. Understanding that the mind is, what is the key? What is the mind? Well, perspective. Your mind is just your perspective. Your perspective helps with concept formation. Why are all these other people standing behind you? You interact with other people. Our brains have evolved to interact with other people. Okay? And the reason our brains have learned to interact with other people is that you share mind with other people. You share mind. What is it like to be the only one in a room who? It's a scary place, even though you're around a bunch of other people. If you're the only person in the room wearing a headscarf, what happens? Or the only person not wearing one. You're the only person in the room wearing a Halloween costume. Classic. You walk in, oh no. Okay. When you're the only person who, you feel separated. But when you actually talk to people and get to know people, what do you realize? You share perspective with people. And as soon as you find a common perspective you share with people, what happens? I don't necessarily become friends, but the amygdala shuts up. Your danger part of your brain goes, oh. I had a wonderful student who was a Turk. My first Turk student I've ever met. It was really interesting because he likes lifting weights. I like lifting weights. We talked about working out. He has family. His kids are about the same age as my kids. We're talking about raising our kids. We're from completely different cultures. However, did we find commonality? Yeah, and by finding commonality, we actually could share mind. And by finding that commonality, by finding that common relationship, we can then start to share perspective. If you argue with someone, what happens? You can't share mind because what do? I would say shut down, you shut out. When someone starts yelling at you, what's your natural thing to do? Push them away. Focus on how that person is different as opposed to how that person is the same. And as soon as you start separating yourself, you become less mindful. You're reacting as opposed to interacting. That's why in this class it's kind of fun. We get to take away, we'll talk about culture and we'll talk about your memory and your thoughts, and we'll talk about how we interact with other people after we study the brain. Why talk about how we study the brain first? Without a brain, we don't function. No creature functions without a brain, except barnacles. Yeah. Now, squids have brains. Yeah. We dissect squids in my son's class years ago. And you can go find their brain. It's not very big. Yeah, and when they lay in a rock. Yeah. he's cool. Yeah, they're the sea squirt. Yeah. But do you think a lot of the animals that, like simple organisms like barnacles and filter feeders, do they need much of a brain? No. The only reason we really have a brain, according to a lot of philosophers, is to move. That's the only reason we have a brain. To move. Behavior. Okay, so now we're going to get to the main point. So tonight, I'm going to ask you to go home and look for experiments in the textbook. Okay? In psychology, we have to be scientists. Why do we have to be scientists? Observe what? Okay, I'm going to write the word behavior here because it's really important. Good science starts with observation without bias. just based on a little perspective diagram here, can humans see the world without bias? No. You all see the world through your perspective. So we have to use good observations without bias. But this is difficult, especially when studying something like the mind. What's a good science on campus? Physics. I'm going to write chem. Did you say history? I thought I heard someone say history. Okay, good. But I have a lot of fun talking with our humanities crowd, the history, because they're in our department, so I have to interact with them, and I really like them as people. But my favorite thing is that the historians look for patterns in the past, and they look at how the media from the past interacts with what happened after the media was produced. And it's all the historians are like going, there's a train coming, based on what's going on in our media now versus what's happened in the past. And people are like, oh, everything's fine. And the historians are all going, train coming. And it's interesting. Okay, so, but physics, chemistry, and biology, what do they do? Is there any more? Geology, probably. Not geography, that's us causing problems. But what do all these things have in common? Yeah. So if you do a chemistry experiment, how do you know it worked? You measure the reactant. You can measure the heat produced. You can measure everything involved with the chemistry. Our chemistry department's really cool. They've got a lot of really neat science stuff. We wanted to find out what percentage of bean burritos in our local area were actually made out of lard versus beans. You'd be surprised that they don't use a lot of lard in a lot of the refried beans at the local Mexican food eateries. How could we find out exactly what's in your bean burrito? So you buy one and you put it in a blender, you grind it up. It's not nearly as tasty as you think it would sound. Anyway, but then you siphon, you mix it with liquid so you can get enough water in it so that because it turns into like a gummy paste if you don't. Anyway, and you siphon and you put it onto the mass spec, and it shoots out these spectral lines, and you can see what percentages of what molecules are inside this thing. It's so freaking cool. We were going to go do a test of the caffeine in all the different coffees that you can get, because in a venti Starbucks like this, you can some of them are as low as 70 milligrams, and some of them are as high as 230. Is that a difference? Yeah, 1 versus 4 cups of coffee. But we can easily do that because the chemistry department can measure. Physics stuff, they measure things. How does physics find new stuff? By measuring things better. That's it. How do they know the stupid peanut planet was out there? You can't see it. Well, Pluto wobbles every so often. Because Pluto wobbles every so often, they say, hey, a planet must have passed there every so often. So they'll look and do the math and figure it out. They can land a rover on Mars from here. Unless you're in Texas. Anybody what happened 10 years ago? Texas was using feet and inches. They missed Mars by 300,000 miles. Somebody had to hit convert before they sent the... Seriously, they actually didn't miss Mars, they hit it dead on. They're supposed to hit the atmosphere and go around it. Dead center. Nailed it. Or as my son says, full send. Okay, so we don't have real measurements in psychology. What's the only real measurement we have in psychology? Well, I'm going to show you the brain. We'll take somebody's. I'm looking for your hair is good for this. I don't know what you got under here. I'm going to listen to one of your brains in class. We'll do that on Friday. Okay. And so I happen to have a brain scanner in my office. It's kind of falling apart. I'm getting a grant this semester to get a new one, so it won't shock you too much. It might cause you to switch it. But I can measure your brain. We'll put your brain up. Short hair is better. That's why. If you have fine hair, you're out. But if you have short hair, I can put the electrodes directly onto your scalp, and we can actually watch your brain up here on the computer. And it's really neat. But watching the brain electrical activity doesn't tell me what you're thinking. It doesn't tell me what you're doing. I can see your brain behaving, and I can tell how sleepy you are, or Mr. Stoned guy last semester. That was pretty funny. You could totally see, dude, you're under the influence. Yeah, okay. That was funny, because you can all of a sudden, it's legal, it's fine. It's all right, mostly. Okay. You work for the federal government? No, fine, go ahead. So when they're on furlough, can they? Okay. So the idea of behavior is the only real measurement we have in psychology. It's the only thing that's real in psychology. So throughout the entire history of the study of psychology, we have been trying to measure behavior to try to figure out what the mind is. Okay, so I need to go through this really quickly before we run away. What are the basic elements of an experiment? Okay, so we start out. We start out with an observation. An observation can be any form of observation, anecdotal, hey, this happened to me, or you fill in all the different gaps of any kind of observation you make. So then, in psychology, the second step is a behavioral measure. Why do we have to define a behavior before we do anything else? In order to study something, you have to know what you're looking for. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, you have to have a behavioral measure. So every experiment, I want you to go look through the textbook, find an experiment. So tell me what their observation is. Like we'll use this as an example right up here. Their observation is that kids at different age see the world differently. That's the observation that we have. So what's the behavioral measurement? The false belief test. Well, that's what it is, in the crayon test. But the false belief test, in the book they use the one with the Sally puts a ball in a box and then walks away, and then someone goes to look for their ball. Where are they going to look for their ball? Okay, you can read that. There's another video we're going to show you next time that also does it with a cheese sandwich. Anyway, but the behavioral measure is child's response. What did we use for my son? What was his response? Well, that was the prompt, his verbal. Is verbal response the behavior? Yes, could everybody see it and hear it? Behavior. You can actually see what he thought, what he was thinking because he used language. So a lot of behavioral measures are people's responses. Some of the other measures that you can use are scales. I'm going to write 1 to 10 here, little dots below it. Most time, if you've ever taken a personality test or a psychological test, on a scale of 1 to 10, rate yourself on, that's a behavioral measure. Because what do you have to do in order to answer the question? Circle a dot, produce behavior. That gives me a behavioral measure. They're not great, but it's still a behavioral measure. Okay, so now what's next after you have a behavioral measure? So now you have to ask a question. Yeah, hypothesis. So your hypothesis is like this. If blank was blank. So what is the manipulation? What is the if in this experiment with my son in the popsicle stick? Not the crayon box. That's the behavioral measures. We're asking what he thinks or thought or will think. So I'm going to write this here. Didn't really actually tell you this, but I hinted at it a lot. We do that. I did this for, say it louder. So, that's a really great sentence, but does the age change the way that the kid thinks? But we can't measure thinks, so we say, answers the question. There's a really funny video. I have a video of archive in my office, and I need to just dig out the external hard drive. Totally Africa's project this semester. Okay, I have a whole bunch of really cool old videos on an old external hard drive that I need to upload onto the web. But there's a video about, they ask kids about a bunch of different ages of, tell me what happens at a birthday party. Just basically testing what they remember. What does every single kid say? Cake. Like the 2-year-old or the 3-year-old, he goes, what happens at a birthday party? He goes, cake! So if all else fails, have cake. That's all you need. That's what most little kids remember, cake. Okay, but it's funny because then the older the kid gets, what happens to their answers? They can become more specific and more detailed. It's really, when between the ages of 5 and 7, the kids give a specific example of a birthday party that they went to. But then when they get to age 8 and 9, they can give you a hypothetical situation at a birthday party. What would you do at a birthday party, as opposed to what have you done at a birthday party? So they can, as the kids get older, their memories become more abstract and more applied. When they're young, they're concrete. Cake. It's really cool. Okay, but again, we ask them specific questions to measure what they are thinking. Okay, so after you have a hypothesis, then what do? Test it. There's lots of different ways of testing their hypotheses. There's lots of different ways. You could do a case study. How could we do this experiment as a case study? Yeah, well, that's not a case study because I did that between all the different kids in the neighborhood. A case study would be I have my son do this when he's little. I have him do it again when he's older. I have him do it again when he's older. What's the problem if I do the same experiment too many times, though? They catch on. And this is the biggest problem with the study of psychology, is that humans learn. Once they figure something out, they go, oh. And the next time you do it, what happens? You get it faster. You learn faster the second time. Every time you do something, you learn it better than you did the first time. That's why if you play golf, should you watch golf? Yes. If you play basketball, you should watch basketball. Because the more you watch, the more you experience, the more you are part of it, the better you get at it. And watching weightlifting, I do during the Olympics, but that's not important. Okay. So when you test something, the test of it becomes extremely difficult. This is the part that you're going to be looking for. So what I'm going to ask you to bring is find an experiment in the book. The purpose of the assignment is basically to have you go through the book and look at the stuff that's in the book. That's really the point of it. Okay? I'm not asking you to read chapter 1 and 2. Just go through the book. If you look at chapter 1, you can find the false belief tests. That's exactly what we did with my son, except with Sally in a box. Okay? But then they didn't actually put Sally in the box, but you'll get it. Okay. That was a joke. Yeah. Then the second, if you go through later in the book, they'll talk about mental disorders, and if they talk about this idea of this notion of self. The experiments, when you get later in the book, are not nearly as interesting as the ones in the beginning of the book. The first half of this class is all the science of psychology. The second half of this class is the application of that science to psychology. So the science part of it, why do we have to start with the science part? Not so you can understand, is so you have the perspective to understand why the second part of the class works. Anybody know one of the leading indicators of psychological illness is? Childhood trauma. Number 1. Now, does trauma mean that the child was severely injured or hurt? No, it could be something as silly as the parent forgetting to pick the kid up at school. Once. But that little bubble of childhood trauma, what could that cause? Anxiety about relationships in the future. 15 years later, I don't know if that person's going to be there. I'm not going to date him. Well, you laugh, but you're learned that if that is put into your perspective really young, that can affect you when you're old. And guess what the therapist does? Yeah. What they do is, I won't draw it on the computer, but I'll draw it up here. This is the last thing. I keep looking at the clock, but it's not working. Everybody carries around with them their perspective. I call a little wheelie suitcase a baggage. Everybody has their little wheelie suitcase that they follow behind them. What's packed at the bottom of the suitcase? All the crap that you push down and don't want to deal with. Okay? All the stuff that's happened in your past that you push down that you don't want to deal with. Does that stuff at the bottom of your suitcase affect how you think about yourself now, in the future, how others think? If you are not conscious of it, can it still affect you? Yes. Because all of the stuff in your little suitcase, in the behaviors, and we call it your learning history, or latent inhibition, but we'll get there. But all the stuff at the bottom of your suitcase changes the way that your mind works. So no matter how much science we apply to psychology, does it really help you? No. What helps you? Becoming mindful. Becoming mindful. Because as soon as you become mindful, you start to realize there's something here. One word here that you realize when you start becoming mindful. Bias. You start learning about your biases. These little things at the bottom of your suitcase are your biases. They're there. They're causing you to think and act differently. They're causing your brain to react, with danger or positive feelings. They're changing the cause and effect relationships you have in the world. Okay, if you change these cause and effect relationships you have in the world, it changes your future thinking. And it all comes back down to the stupid idea that your behavior is based on what? Perspective. So this is the fun part about experiment. It's the fun part about psychology. Is that we started a lab here. I say we because I've always wanted to have my own lab. And so I asked the vice president of instruction, hey, I really want to have my own lab. And he said, great. And I said, hey, can I get some lab space? Can I get a room for a laboratory? He says, write it up in a formal proposal. So I wrote it up in a formal proposal, and he said, good idea. So I made a sign that says Center for Behavioral and Mind and Behavioral Research and put it above my office. And I said, look, I have a lab. And so as soon as I posted out that we started the lab, everybody said, yay! And now I'm writing a grant this semester to get an Xbox, a driving wheel, and 2 EEGs. Guess what we're going to do? We're going to play video games and watch people's brains as they're playing video games and look for distractions and what we can do to either limit or increase distractions amongst video game playing. It's really just so I can race my son on Forza from home. That's not important. You in your office? Yeah. You homesick? Yeah, let's go. We got him a driving wheel for Christmas. On Black Friday, one of the really good ones was like $150, $160. Like one of the real $400 ones. So we bought that. We have it bolted onto his desk in his room in his driving wheel chair. The shifter was too expensive. We couldn't buy the shifter, but that's next. Maybe his birthday. So cool. He won't let me play with it though. Okay. I have a minivan. Don't need his stupid poison. Okay. But the reason we're writing a grant is so we can start testing things. Why test video game playing? I wouldn't say you use your head that much. A lot of people use them constantly. My son, when we're up skiing, was in serious video game withdrawal. His thumbs were doing this. Why was he in video game withdrawal? Practicing building. We limit his screen time, but when he has screen time, he's playing Fortnite with his friends or racing his friends on Forza. That's it. And also watching Jimmy Neutron simultaneously, which I've told him not to do millions of times, but Johnny Neutron's awesome. Sorry. Okay. So, Jimmy Neutron? Jimmy Neutron. Okay, so we're going to test, hopefully, if I can get this stuff set up, we're going to be able to test students next semester with the grant stuff. We should get the money at the beginning of April. Road trip Best Buy. But The idea of setting up hypothesis tests and the idea of setting up a behavioral test is the foundation of everything that we're going to be studying this semester. And it's really sad, but a lot of students who finish their psych degree still don't know how to design experiments effectively. If you learn how to design experiments effectively, you can become a consultant. I've been working on trying to, I just found this out this last week, that if I go out to different companies, I can actually get paid to help them design experiments for different companies. Why is designing experiments so hard? A lot of people don't get past mindfulness. I mean, don't even get past this. Most people don't think about the world scientifically. How do you think about the world? Realistically. That's awesome. You're kind of spot on for this class. Because why would you not care about the scientific method? Why would you care more about how this affects me right now? That's more important. If you, like this winter session, my son's coming down with a sore throat. So 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, I got a sore throat during winter session, which sucks. Luckily, this class is shorter, so I can survive. But boy, that was a longer. It was only like, I think 10 sessions total. It was like 9 to 2, like 10 classes. By the end of it, my voice was just destroyed. And the semester starts the following Monday. And my students like, just stop talking. Anyway, but if, I forgot where I was going, distracted, sorry. Yeah, I know, I got distracted where the sore throat was coming in on this, sorry. Oh well, okay. Yeah, okay. There was a point going through, and then I started thinking about last year or 2 years ago, and got distracted. Moving on. Okay, so that means class is over, because my attention span officially just left. So, what do you have to do tonight? Bring in these 4 things. Bring in these 4 things, okay? I wanted to show you one more thing on Canvas before we go. I just thought about. So, on the discussions, you look on the discussions, okay? You don't have to turn or do anything, okay? But there's the person who. Thank you. Okay. I was working on this. I was working on the class, and I saw he had logged in. So if you have any questions after class, what can you do? Post them here. Some people don't like. Well, I guess I could make it anonymous if you want. But they don't. You're afraid to ask questions. You don't have a strong voice. English is your second language, so you don't like talking in public. So what happens? So ask questions. Post something up here. I will look at these in the morning before class, and I can answer the questions. If there's a topic that you see that's interesting, okay, what should you do? Post it. Okay? If you find a YouTube video, if you find something that's interesting, that's relevant to what we're talking about, post it. Okay, I can remove it if it's weird and creepy, but that's happened. Okay, these are a bunch of different videos that we are going to be talking about over the course, that we talk about throughout the week. I don't have time to show them in class, but what you should do is after this, after Friday, you can watch them during the week if you really want to, but over the weekend, watch the videos. There's one this one has a false belief test in it. I think one of these is, I haven't watched this one yet. That's a new one that just came out that I haven't seen it. Did I see what I'm looking for? Oh, this one's amazing. I watched it, How the Dogs Really Love Us. They really do. Cats? Yeah. They love you when you feed them. I'm biased because I'm allergic to cats, so we don't like them. So, I grew up with cats, and then scratching me the whole time growing up, I'm seriously allergic to them now. If somebody has a cat sitting near me, all of a sudden my eyes get itchy. I blame you all, cat people. Get in your Mack and Volkswagen, drive home. Okay. Very tight. Okay. But, so, I'm done. Fried. Okay. So when you come back, what do you need? That's a text message. Yeah, come up with these 4 things. I'm gonna, as soon as I hit, I'm gonna go up to my